Good morning, Nova Nation. It's WXVU Sports Director David Szczepanski, and it is time for your Villanova men's basketball preview as your Wildcats take on the Penn Quakers tonight at 7 p.m. at the Finn. It is Villanova's second Philly Big Five game of the season. Of course, they lost to St. Joe's last Tuesday. And let's be honest, this past week for Villanova was definitely not their best week, right? It was a very bad week, in fact. They lost two games, both of the games they played last week. They started last Tuesday with a loss against St. Joe's at Hawk Hill, and then they lost on Friday at CFG Bank Arena in the Hall of Fame Series Baltimore against Virginia. Both of those games, Villanova was favored to win, and unfortunately for the Wildcats, we saw the same issues, right? Turnover issues, bad three-point defense, just offense that can't seem to get into a rhythm and score consistently. And those same issues are the issues that we've been talking about, right? When you go back to the Columbia loss at the very beginning of the season at the Finn, and then, of course, showed up again against St. Joe's and Virginia on Friday. So the Wildcats had the weekend off in terms of game action. They get back tonight against the Penn Quakers. And the Quakers come in to the Finneran Pavilion. They are 2-2 so far in their 2024-25 campaign. They started off the season with two wins. The first one was against NJIT, who Villanova also beat. And then the Quakers also defeated Maryland Eastern. That was a high-scoring game, both teams in the mid to high 80s when all things were said and done. But the Quakers have lost their past two games. They suffered a loss to Lafayette, who Villanova also beat. And then the Quakers also lost most recently to St. Joe's on Friday night at the Palestra. It was a blowout loss for the Quakers. So Villanova comes into this game 2-3. The Quakers come into this game with a 2-2 record. As for Penn, some other stats, they have four scorers that are averaging more than 10 points per game, but really underneath that, they don't have a whole lot of bench scoring, very similar to what Villanova has struggled with in the first part of the season in terms of the lack of bench scoring and the lack of depth. Even though the Wildcats do have some talent on the bench, they really just haven't been able to get a whole lot of consistent scoring, which has kind of been one of their main themes, as I talked about earlier this season for Villanova. In terms of their top scorer, Ethan Roberts right now leads the team with a little bit more than 15, almost 16 points per game. He's also a good rebounder. Roberts was not on this Penn team last season. He's actually a transfer from Drake, but he did not play last season with Drake. He redshirted due to an injury that happened prior to the start of last season. But the season before that, so 2 years ago, he spent it with Army. He was one of their leading scorers, and he's done a really nice job, like I said, this season, almost 16 points per game. And of course, this Penn team, they lost their two top scorers, Clark Slackert, as well as Tyler Perkins. And Perkins is now a member of your Villanova Wildcats. Some other of the top scorers for Penn, for the team that averages around 69, 70 points per game. In addition to Roberts, you also have Sam Brown, who's averaging around 13 points per game, and Nick Spinoso. This is now his fourth straight year with Penn. He's a senior. He's averaging a little bit more than 11 points per game, but Villanova saw him last year, and Spinoso did a really nice job for this Penn team to score some points, pick up some rebounds, and contribute. So he'll be a player to watch tonight. But Villanova, they do have some tape on him. They have of course, played against Spinoso the past few years. But Ethan Roberts, so far, has been the go-to man for this Penn Quakers team. Some other stats for Penn, they really struggle from the charity stripe. We saw this last season at the Palestra when Villanova played Penn. The Penn Quakers, they shoot just about 66, 67% from the free throw line. They do shoot pretty well from the field, a little bit over 40%. They do struggle from behind the arc. But one thing about this Penn team is they take care of the basketball. They average, so far in their first four games, less than 10 turnovers. Around 9.5 is where they fall. And this Villanova team has really struggled with turnovers in their first 5 games of the season. They have over 60 turnovers in the mid-60s. I believe the number is 63 turnovers for the Wildcats in their first 5 games. So Villanova will have to clean that up. And this Penn team, they definitely take care of the basketball. Some other stats, this Penn team will also struggle defensively at times, right? They allowed more than 80 points to Maryland Eastern, who is not a very good program. They also allowed in the mid-80s to St. Joe's. And we know St. Joe's, they're very competitive, right? They obviously beat Villanova last week. But this Penn defense will struggle at times. They will give up some points. And this Villanova offense has to be ready to score, right? They have to take care of, the basketball. They have to limit turnovers. The Wildcats have done a really nice job in the rebounding battle. They dominated the rebounding battle against Virginia, both offensively and defensively when you look at rebounding. But the rebounding has not been enough, right? Villanova has to take care of the turnovers tonight. They have to shoot the ball better and execute, right? Villanova started off the game hot against Virginia, and then they got really cold, right, heading into the middle of that first half and into that second half. And a lot of it was because Villanova started to play from behind, right? They couldn't score offensively. They couldn't keep up. They allowed those big runs that we've talked about over the past few years. And in addition to that, they couldn't stop Virginia defensively, especially from behind the arc. Isaac McNeely finished the game perfect from behind the arc in his 6 attempts. So Villanova's three-point defense definitely has to be better. But luckily for them, they face a Penn team that they should beat. And I've said this the past few videos. I mean, all the teams that Villanova's played this season, really, I guess you could argue that Virginia was a really tough opponent, especially at a neutral environment. But all the teams they played this year, Villanova's had more talent on paper than those teams. But Villanova has just not executed, and they have a chance tonight to get back in the win column against Penn. Of course, Eric Dixon has been so good right now in the 4 games that he's played. Right, he missed the season opener against Lafayette due to a suspension for participating in the Portsmouth Invitational. But in the 4 games he has played, he's scored at least 20 points. And Villanova's offense has scored a decent amount of points, especially if you take away that loss against Virginia on Friday. But the Wildcats, they have to execute better, especially down the stretch. They are favored by about 14 to 15 points over the Penn Quakers tonight. And Villanova, they are competing, of course, for the Philly Big Five Classic in early December. Villanova cannot compete in the first place game in the Philly Big Five Classic because St. Joe's has won both games, right? The 6 teams are split into 2 pods, 3 and 3. St. Joe's has won both of their games. They defeated Villanova, of course, last week, and Penn on Friday. So this game will be for the winner. The winner will take on whoever the opponent will be from the other pod in the 3rd place game. The loser will drop to the 5th place game, which is where Villanova played last year against Drexel. So a win tonight for Villanova will get them into that 3rd place game, and hopefully they can rebound and even up their record at 3 and 3. Our WXVU coverage will begin at 6:30 p.m. with the pregame show, as Steve McCain, Ryan Scanlon, and I will have the coverage from the Finneran Pavilion. 7 p.m. will be tip-off. We hope you enjoy this Philly Big Five Classic. I'll have content later on tonight from the Finneran Pavilion, as well as our broadcast. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. And as always, go Cats!